I really want my viewers to really understand what you went through the night of the accident. I really want you to open up to me on that, okay? So it was December 28th, your birthday night, 2007, correct?
It's actually December 27th,
Okay.
but everything in the papers it mentions the 28th because it was past 12 o'clock at night.
Okay. So now here's
Yeah,
my question. That night, you took the car, you drove to where? Where were you? You were in Fort Lauderdale?
yeah. I went out about 11 o'clock at night to go meet a couple friends just for one drink.
Okay.
They were they were getting up the next day early to go to the Bahamas for New Year's. I had to pick up the kids and take them to school the next day, so I wasn't going to be out late, and wasn't going to be drinking a lot. Um, and I went and met these people. The first bar we went to was pretty much dead, and they go, "Let's go to another one." So we went to another one, and long story short, they ended up leaving around 2:15. I end up leaving around 3 o'clock. As I was leaving the bar, I ran into some Boston Red Sox fans, and of course, I had my Yankee ring on, and they noticed me and they said, "Hey, you know, what are you doing?" I go, "Oh, I'm just getting ready to go home." And they said, "Well, listen, we saw you doing the TV and radio because I did Fox, ESPN and Fox for the playoffs, and I covered the Red Sox the entire playoff and World Series that year when they won in '04, and
Ooh,
I'm
that must
sorry, in
have
'07, '07."
07. Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, we saw you doing the telecast." And I'm like, "Yeah." I go, it was those guys were great. I love those Red Sox guys. And they said, "Yeah, let's do a drink and a shot." So I did a drink and a shot with them, and literally Eddie left the bar, and the accident happened 5 minutes later. Is when we got hit
All
by
right.
this woman going through the red light.
So here's my question. How many drinks did you have that night?
Probably three or four
Three or four
over a 6 hour period.
over a 6 hour period. So how does the
Yeah.
blood alcohol level work?
So when they got my blood, they didn't get my blood till 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours after the accident.
Okay.
So the way the blood alcohol works, that drink and that shot that I had before I left the bar, at the time of my accident, which was 3:06 or 3:09, that alcohol would not have been in my system yet to impair me.
Hmm.
So legally, I was probably a .0405 at the time of the accident.
Right. So zero point
But
0.8 is illegal, right? Is that how it works?
0.08 is DUI,
Driving under intoxication.
under the influence. Yeah.
Under influence, sorry, yeah. So
And so, when they did my blood, they didn't get my blood till 2.5, 3 hours later. So once you drink something
mhm.
and you ingest it, it takes about an hour to an hour and 10 minutes just to get into your system.
Okay.
Then it escalates for the next 2 or 3 hours, and then it goes down.
Oh, so the numbers increase as the hours escalate.
Yeah, so it's so what most people don't understand blood alcohol is you think, "Oh, I've been drinking all night. I'm gonna have a couple cups of coffee, and it's gonna help me when I drive home." No, it doesn't, because the alcohol you've consumed is continuing to get into your blood system, and your blood alcohol level is rising for the next 3 to 3.5 hours, depending on how much you drank. Right?
Okay.
So because they didn't get my blood till 2.5 hours later, my first blood alcohol draw that they got was a .12. So if you take the alcohol from the drink and the shot and you extrapolate that back, I was between a 0.4 and a 0.5 at the time of the accident,
Which is legal.
which is under the legal limit,
Right.
and it's considered borderline DWI, driving while intoxicated, but not DUI.
Okay. So
So
now explain to me, and Jimmy, I'm sorry to remind you, but I asked you
listen,
that night. You were driving. What was it? An intersection with light, with lights, right? So red light, green
yep,
light, traffic light, right? So what
yep.
happened? Give me the explanation. This is you, and this is her.
Yeah.
So
Long
go
story
ahead.
short, what it came down to, what was proven in court, was proven in front of a jury, the whole thing. I mean, it took the jury less than 45 minutes to throw out the manslaughter charge because they knew that I didn't cause the accident. The state never could prove that. And with all of the evidence pointing to that, she ran the red light because she was intoxicated herself, text messaging while driving, no headlights, no seatbelt, all these different things. But the long story short of it was, unfortunately, she ran the red light and I caught the back end of her. She was ejected from the car, and because of the ejection is what caused her death. Had she had a seatbelt on, she probably would have lived, and we would not have gone through 3 years of a trial and everything else that we went through. Eddie, it's a really one of the things I always talk about is, I have to take blame myself because had I not been drinking at all that night, there would have never been a question who caused the accident, who was drinking and driving. There would have never been that question. The fact that I was drinking and driving put me in harm's way to be accused of something. And as we always talk about, you can be accused of anything, but it doesn't mean you were guilty of it. And that's what I was waiting 3 years to prove in a court of law, that I did not cause the accident, but was actually hit by a drunk driver who went through a red light.
You actually did your own investigation, right?
Oh,
You kept bugging your lawyer. You kept saying, look, you actually went there at that time around 3 a.m., right? And you timed the light of how many seconds, right? You did all that stuff, right? Because there's a lot of anxiety going on, Jimmy. Your life could be jeopardized, right? If they find you guilty, you're doing 15 years. That's a guarantee, right?
Yeah.
So
No,
what you
after the depositions were taken,
Mhm.
after all the evidence came out, I thought they were going to drop the case. I thought it was because there was so much evidence in our favor of all of these things about the other driver and everything else that was happening that we pretty much had a slam dunk case. But for some reason, the state attorney wouldn't drop the case. And what it came down to, Eddie, was that the state attorney was running to become a judge. And if she got my conviction, she would probably get that judgeship. And when I found that out, I was not going to take a plea. I was not going to take something to get out of it. I was going to fight this to the very end. And that's a whole nother story because like if you go back and you read an article, there was an article, but I showed it to you about Dan Levitard.
Yes, that was a great article, by the way. Great article.
He was a Herald writer back then, and he did an article with me probably, I want to say 3 months, 2 months, 3 months after the accident. And it basically said I was begging to go to court, that I wanted my day in court because I knew that I would be exonerated. My attorneys even said that in the article, that we are waiting to go to court to have him exonerated. And it was just such a botched case that everything that happened to me over that 3 years was just one thing after another, that the state was abusing their powers to make me continually look. I mean, if you read the media back then and you read everything else, like at the time, my life was actually really good. I was making $500,000 a year. I was doing appearances for the Yankees. I was working for the networks, and I was making another 200,000 doing that. And I was dating a lot of pretty girls, and I had custody of my kids. My life was really, really good. But if you read all the media from the time of the accident to the time that I got exonerated, you'll see that, oh my God, his life was such a mess. He could not, the state tried to portray me as this guy that couldn't get on with life after baseball, which was the furthest from where I was at that point in my life. And unfortunately, once that gets covered and that gets out there, it doesn't ever really go away. And that's where, and one of the reasons you and I talked about doing this podcast, you wanted people to know that, no, I didn't murder somebody. No, I didn't kill somebody. That's the way it's been portrayed for 17 years. And it's I never really came out much and talked about it. Um, but one of the things that you and I are going to discuss is the possibility of this going forward. That I have a documentary that's going to come out that's going to cover a lot of these things, uh, but more so just talking about where my life is now, um, to where where basically the redemption of my life and how I was able to read a book called The Purpose Driven Life 6 days after my accident. That changed my life forever. That gave me the strength to see it, see the trial, wait till trial, and not take the easy way out. Um, and yeah, it was just like I said, it was a tough 3 years, but more so on the other family who lost a loved one, on my three kids who didn't know they were going to wake up with their dad, whether he was going to go to jail for these 15 years or whether he was going to be okay. And listen, I assured them every day, Eddie, that they were going to have a father, and I was never going to see a day in jail. But they had friends. Their friends' parents read papers. They were dealing with all that stuff, and that's one of the things that um, I didn't want to have my kids. Once I was exonerated, I could have come right back out and said, "Oh, look, this was me. I didn't cause this. I didn't," and I could have done all that stuff, but I didn't do it because I wanted to get my kids as far away from it as possible. I had met a beautiful woman who is now my wife, and we had a relationship begin during my trial, waiting for trial, and I wanted to just end it, get rid of it, and move on. And I moved to California, and I made her a promise, as I made my kids, that I would not go back to work, that I would not go back to all the things that I was doing to get my name back, that I was going to raise them and her daughters before I did that. And that's basically what I was doing up until about 4 years ago, when all the kids got out of the house and I was able to go back to start working for the Yankees again, working in New York.
Jimmy, did everybody give up on you, Jimmy? Like former teammates, anybody reach out for you and say, "Hey, Jimmy, I know you're going through hard times, but I'm there for you." Any of your former teammates?
Yeah, well, two guys especially, David Cohn and Joe Girardi. Those two guys, if you remember, they were the combination that had the perfect game. And Brandon Steiner came to me and said, "Hey, how you doing, man? Are you okay?" Because Brandon, had Steiner Sports Marketing back then, and we used to do a lot of signings with him. And he knew the Yankees wouldn't touch me, and he knew anybody else wouldn't really touch me, and he really couldn't touch me because of everything that was going on. But he came to me and he said, "Listen, Girardi and Cohn, if they'll sign 100 pictures, I'll get you. I'll pay you for what it would normally I would pay them to sign it if they're willing to give it up to you." And sure enough, they both decided that they would do that.
Wow.
And yeah, and they were able to get me some money to help me, and just those two guys were there for me. If you remember, there was an article written that I actually showed up at spring training in Tampa, and Girardi let me come in the locker room to say hello to Pettit and some of the guys. And of course, he got reamed by the New York media and things, for "Oh, how are you letting him in? And how could you let this guy in?" And Joe just said, "You know what? He's a Christian guy, and I'm a brother, and you know what? I was just here for him. That's all. It had nothing to do with anything. I wasn't choosing sides. I wasn't just, I just wanted to be there for him." And that to this day, Joe and Coney, they will always have a special place in my heart.
Wow. What was the plea offer back then? Did you remember? What did the DA
I
offer
just
you?
remember my attorney just saying, "Listen, when all the evidence got thrown out about the other driver, blood alcohol level, cocaine, all the stuff that was going to be our slam dunk case, I remember my attorney saying, I can probably get you 10 years probation, 5 years no license, a felony on your record, but no jail time." And I was facing 15 years. And when all of the evidence got thrown out, he came to me and said, "I think I can get that for you. Because if we don't have all that evidence and we can't use all that stuff, you're going to be convicted of 15 years."
Shit.
Yeah.
Now,
And
Jimmy.
at the time, Eddie, Pastor Rick Warren, who wrote the book The Purpose Driven Life that I'm going to talk about right now,
Go ahead.
he wrote the book The Purpose Driven Life. He had said a prayer over me. And when I met him in 2010, in January, my trial didn't go till November. And when all the evidence that the other driver got thrown out in August, he wanted me to take this plea. And Rick Warren had said a prayer in January over me that said, let the jury be just. Let them see through the smoke and mirrors of what the state is trying to do. But most of all, give Jimmy the strength to see it to the end. And when my attorney told me about this plea deal he thought he could get, I said, David, I have it on better authority. I'm supposed to see this to the end. And I waited. I wouldn't take a plea. And I waited for my day in court. And of course, all the evidence wasn't supposed to be let back in. And by the grace of God, that was the reason we waited. And the evidence got let back. Some of the evidence got let back in. But realistically, Eddie, I was almost convicted without 80% or 90% of the evidence that we had, that somehow the state got thrown out, even though it was fact, even though that it was black and white and it was legal documents. We weren't allowed to use them, even though it was the truth. And that's when I learned, wow, how many guilty people or innocent people are sitting in jail because of a technicality, because you couldn't use, even though it was solid, actual, factual evidence, you couldn't use it because of a technicality.
Wow.
It totally changed my faith in the system, my faith in the jury system, because the jury doesn't get to hear all of the truth. And that was the one thing Rick Warren also said, that the truth sets you free. And I waited till the truth came out, and sure enough, the truth is what really ended up setting me free.
But Jimmy, how come they kept delaying it, man? They kept delaying.
Eddie, it's again part of the way the system works. I was getting delayed because of the state attorney's bar mitzvah. The state attorney had a family vacation plan. We were getting delayed because of this. We got delayed because the judge was taken off criminal court, but yet he wanted to keep my case because he knew the case was going to be on in-session TV. All these crazy things that were happening. And here the whole time, Eddie, if you go back and you read articles about when I was talking to the media and the press, and I did a lot of it against my attorney's wishes, I always said, I can't wait for my day in court. I'm begging for it. You know what? And it finally happened. And sure enough, everything worked out.
Jimmy, how much did you have to pay your attorney?
A lot.
I mean, are we talking about $500,000 right there?
It was right around that area. Yeah.
Now, did your attorney ever give you praise and say you should become a lawyer or a detective the way you investigate too?
Believe it or not, we as soon as our trial was over with and all the things kind of settled a little bit, about 6 months after our trial, it was the National Defense Lawyers Council conference up in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked if my attorney and me would come up and speak, because we had talked about it on some interviews about that, me actually writing down questions and writing them in the courtroom, and my attorney asking those questions in the courtroom. The judge even noticed it. The judge even said, after my trial was over, Mr. Leyritz, you had a big part in this, because I've never seen a defendant writing down questions that his attorney was asking in the courtroom. That's just unheard of. They never heard. And even Beth Karras, who covered the court for in session, the case for in session, she even said the same thing. She was a prosecutor for 20 years. She's like, I've never seen anything like this, And then, of course, after the not guilty verdict, the 4 jurors stayed afterwards to talk to me and to let me know that. And when I told them that not only was her BAC a point, 198, all these other things that never got presented to them, they were so upset. They were like, we were almost going to convict you, not knowing all of these facts. how is this system just? And how is it fair to us that that we didn't get all the evidence, the truth, not just made up, hearsay, actual factual truth? How did we not see? How was that not privy to us? So even those 4 jurors, they lost a lot of faith in the system also.
Maybe you should have represented yourself and save all that money. Jeez.
No, honestly, David Bogenschutz, my attorney, one of the greatest. I have him to thank for my life also. I have a couple people, Rick Warren, the pastor of my church in Fort Lauderdale, Troy Gramling, my wife now, my mother, and Rick Warren, and of course David Bogenschutz, that helped change my life.
Wow, unreal. And Jimmy, you had to sell all your memorabilia and all that stuff, right? To pay the lawyer
Oh,
fees?
what my ex-wife hadn't sold already, yes. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, during my divorce, my ex-wife sold a lot of our stuff. When she was on a drug run, she actually sold it to a pawn shop. And so for my World Series rings that she could have gotten $25,000 to $30,000 for, she got $1,000,
That's it?
and so she could keep partying and keep
Was she on
wasting.
drugs at that time when she was
Yes,
selling? Oh my
yeah.
God.
Unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, yes. So it was a tough three. Like I said, it was a tough 3 years. But Eddie, listen, it made me stronger. It turned me back into my faith. When the trial was over with, the judge called me in and said, "Mr. Leyritz, this should have never come to trial. You got a 1 year probation, but you live in the state attorney's neighborhood, and she's going to try to get you because you embarrassed her on national TV. She looked like such an idiot. And what do you want to do?" And I said, "Can I go to California?" And he said, "Yes, go to California." So I had to call in once a month to check in with him to let him know that I was doing okay. I was going out to become a member of the church in Saddleback Church in New York, in California, and to bring my 3 boys and get to know her 2 girls. And we lived separately for 2.5 years until the kids got to know each other, and then we all moved in together in 2013.
Wow.
And
Jimmy,
we've been together ever since. Yeah.
Jimmy, according to Dan Lebitard's article, I mean, you were literally your all the evidence, all the papers were piling up in your wardrobe. You know what I mean? Like it's like there was papers everywhere, right, in the house.
Yeah, the interview was a little hard because at that time I really had not the kids had really never seen anything
Mhm.
because I would go at night. I would put them to bed at 8 o'clock, for school, and then I would go out to my backyard with all of the paperwork, with everything else, and I would just spend hours going over everything and keeping them away from it. And when Dan came for the interview, I had to show him some of the evidence and some of the stuff that I had. And it was the first time that the kids kind of actually saw it because they were kind of hanging out a little bit. We tried to shelter them from it as much as we could, but it was tough. But the main thing I wanted the kids to know and to hear me say to Dan Lebitard is that I'm waiting for my day in court. I want to go to court.
So you were
You know,
prepared, Jimmy. You were like, "Bring it, let's go, man." You know what I mean?
yeah,
Wow.
there was a lot of, like I said, there was a lot of things that happened. And fortunately, when I met Michelle, my now wife, and she had read, we met in New York. She had read the book, The Purpose Driven Life, and I met her in New York, and she found out who I was and what I was going through, and she's like, "But you seem like such a normal person. How do you seem so normal?" And I said, "Well, I read this book called The Purpose Driven Life by this pastor named Rick Warren." She's like, "Oh my God, I love that book. That's the pastor of my church. I go to his church in California."
Wow.
That's how we met each other.
Mm.
And little did we know that we would eventually, because of all the delays, we would start dating. We would talk to each other every night on the phone. And then when she finally thought she couldn't take it anymore, she came down and she read all the evidence. She read the depositions, and she sat in my office for 3 hours and read it, and came out of my office and said, "You're innocent. I'm going to stay with you through this trial. And she did. And, you know,
Where are you going to
like I
find a
said,
wife like that, man? Where are you going to find a woman like
yep,
that?
listen, dude, I am so blessed. Even to this day, we've been together 15 years. She is the best gift that God ever gave me, besides my children.
And
You
me.
know, and you, yeah. And but yeah, she is the best gift I've ever gotten. She has been with me, and we have built a life together that has been built on faith, been built on God, and we've raised our children that way. And like I said, 4 years ago, actually right around COVID time, um, her her youngest daughter, or our oldest daughter, was getting ready to go to college, and we needed more money. And I told her, I said, listen, I'll go back to staying in New York. And, the boys are old enough now. And I had been approached, Eddie, a couple times to do a documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really felt like doing it because I had made a promise that I would not subject the kids to any more stuff, to any more things till they were emotionally ready. And again, me too, and Michelle. I didn't want to rehash everything again. And then 2 years ago, when the Yankees were playing the Dodgers, and I was sitting up in a suite, and there was a guy named Franco Porporino who was in the suite that I was in, and he was a big Jim Leyritz fan, a big Yankee fan, and started talking to me, and he's like, "Yeah, dude, tell me what happened." I didn't know the whole story and everything, and I told him, I started telling him all these things I'm telling you right now, and he was like, "Holy crap, dude! None of that was covered. None of that was covered by the media. The media made you look like you were this, this
They made you
murderer.
like you're a murderer. That's what the
Yeah,
people were saying,
and,
right?
and like your life was so messed up at that particular time that you couldn't handle being a retired ball player when that was the furthest from the truth." And I started telling him all these things, and he goes, "Listen, I do documentaries. I've just got done doing Donald Trump's assassination in Butler. I just did it for Fox Nation. Would you consider doing a documentary now?" And I came home, Eddie, and I talked to the boys. I talked to Michelle. I said, "Hey, what do you think, guys?" And so I see him at the next Yankee Dodgers game, and I said, "Hey," he said, "Yeah." He goes, "I can't believe it." He goes, "I was at my restaurant," because he owns a restaurant in New Jersey. He said, "I was talking about meeting you, and the things these people were saying about you, they don't know the truth. They don't know everything that happened." And he goes, "It convinced me that this documentary, what you've done with your life since then, what you were accused of that you weren't guilty of, not only the accident, but the domestic violence situation, which continues to come up once in a while." But he said, "I can't believe that some of these people won't hire you because they Google you and they think you're this horrible person." He said, "We need to change that. And how would you like to do a documentary about what you've been doing with your life since you've moved to California, since you married Michelle, since you've raised these 5 kids, and you've dedicated your life, number one, to God, but also to charities and foundations and giving back, that people don't know about because the media doesn't care about that stuff." I used to tell Daryl Strawberry, "I want to bring you on my podcast because I want to tell your story, Daryl, not your baseball career, but what you've done since your baseball career, since you've been building these clinics to help addicts, since you've been preaching in churches, changing lives." The media doesn't cover that. They don't care about that. That needs to be covered. And Franco Porporino, the guy that's producing my documentary, um, he is the one that said, "We're going to tell your story." And hopefully someone picks it up. But I think it's really what I love about it. It's a story of faith, perseverance, never being drafted, making it to the big leagues. You know, And then, of course, coming back from being wrongly accused of two things that you didn't do, but waiting for your day in court to prove them with facts. It wasn't an O.J. Simpson thing that, oh, maybe you were guilty. No, the facts spoke for themselves. And to be able to move on from what we're doing now in our lives with the lives that I've been able to do. I do a lot of church speaking. I do a lot of speaking at colleges uh, because of the drinking and driving, because teaching these kids that, hey, one day I was on top of the world. I was the king of New York. I never had to work another day in my life. I could do signings. I could do all this stuff. And I made one bad choice that even wasn't my fault, but yet I was part of something that I should have never been drinking and driving. And that that one decision, I lost everything for quite a while. And I had to build my life back, not being this super World Series champion. It was being a man of faith, man of God. And it's the one thing that we always say, Eddie, and I tell kids, I had to learn to become interested in people's lives and not the interesting person anymore. Because everybody wanted to know me. They all wanted a piece of me when I was on top. But when I hit bottom, there weren't too many people there. There weren't too many people there.
Yeah. When I started hanging out with you way back in LA, when you invited me to Anaheim versus the Yankees at Anaheim, and I got to know you, and I was saying to myself, guy's not a bad person. And then one night, it was me, you, and John Anthony. We're at the cigar lounge. This was before COVID, or maybe after COVID. I don't know. And you told me your story. When you told me exactly what happened, just like you told me on the podcast right now. And I said to myself, this guy's not a murderer.
Right.
This guy's not a murderer.
I say this all the time. It's a situation that I was involved in a tragedy, but I didn't cause the tragedy. But because of the drinking and driving, I have responsibility that I have to take and say, listen, it would not have changed what happened, but it would have changed how I was treated and looked at, because there wouldn't have been a question of who caused the accident. And that's the thing that when Franco Porporino asked me to do this documentary, I said to him, I don't want to talk about the accident. I don't want to talk about all of that. It's part of my story. It has to be told.
Right.
But I don't want to get into all the craziness because we've moved on from that. And the life that I lead now, it's because I was given a platform of what I did on the baseball field, being this World Series champion. But it's also having that platform and being able to turn it into something positive that was really, really a tragedy. And to be able to turn it around. And more so, like you're saying, for the people to understand who don't know what happened back then, who don't know, all they know is what they see in the newspapers or what's on Google, that I didn't cause this, that this was not. But again, I always tell these kids when I'm speaking at the colleges, I had a drink and a shot. I should have never drank and drove. If you do that, you open yourself up. Whether you're guilty or not, you open yourself up to something like that happened to me. And it's a powerful message to kids. It's a powerful message to let them know that, hey, you can lose it all by one bad choice. And that's basically what my story was.
Yeah, well, all it takes is 10 seconds to make an executive decision that could possibly ruin your life.
Yeah.
And thank God,
Yeah. And
thank God you didn't cause it. You know what I mean? That's the bottom line. You didn't cause it. And it hurts.
listen,
And it hurts for her family side too, right? I mean, how many kids did this woman have?
yeah, she had two kids, two different partners, but two kids.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it was, listen, like I even said it in the courtroom as soon as I got my verdict. There's no winners here. There was no winners in my case. Nobody won. There was a death. I lost 3 years of my life and all anything that I had going for me, and to this day, it's still part of my life. There were no winners.
Jimmy, did they lock you up that night?
Oh yeah, yeah. I went right to jail. I got out the next morning.
Mm-hmm.
Posted bail, got out. Um, yeah, and then waited, of course, 3 years, and you know breathalyzers and all these different things that happened, and it was a crazy 3.5 years of waiting and waiting and waiting. But I knew that once I got in the courtroom, that and this was before all the evidence was thrown out, that I was going to win, and the truth would set me free. And sure enough, even though most of the stuff got thrown out, the truth still set me free.
The name of the documentary that your guy is pitching, right there, I just put it up right there. It's called The Redemption of Jim Leyritz, correct?
Correct. Yep, The Redemption of Jim Leyritz, and it tells the story of we're hoping to have it like a 3-part type of a thing
Yeah.
where the first part is my baseball career,
Right.
how great, being undrafted, all that stuff that you and I just talked about, and then the second part being the accident, the trial, and then of course the third part being the new life starting with God, with Michelle, with the kids, and the life that we've had now in California for the past 17 years.
During those years, those 3 years, did you have to borrow money, Jimmy? Were you like,
Oh God,
yeah?
yeah, it was. I was very fortunate to have good friends, but I was also very fortunate, Eddie, that I had a couple of people that were willing to be in my corner and privately hire me to sign some things, to sign some autographs, because they knew that eventually it would continue to be worth something.
Right.
Especially the home run that started the dynasty, the
Right.
last home run of the century, all those moments that I had, that eventually those would probably still be worth something, which they, to this day they still are. So
Wow. I mean, the story. I'm looking forward to this documentary. So, Jimmy, as of right now, did they film the documentary or they're
they've been doing some interviews.
okay?
They've been doing some interviews. Um, he's really, really busy right now with a couple more podcasts, or I mean, documentaries that he's doing for Fox and for somebody else, for I think Netflix. But we're kind of hoping that we can get it going and get it done sometime in the 96 or the 2026 year, because it is the 30th anniversary of the 96 team. And it would kind of be a good time to release it of, hey, what's Jim Leyritz doing now with his life?
Mhm.
And what have we missed? That even though Jim's around, we still don't know. Most people that don't know my past still think that all these things I was guilty of and not guilty of.
Right.
So
Now, during that time, did the Yankees ever tell you, "Hey, we don't want you here anymore"? We
in the beginning, they were very honest with me. They said, Jimmy, we really can't touch you.
Mhm.
And Eddie, over the last years, there's still some tension between me and a few people in the organization. But overall, no, they have been great. I still work up in the suites. I still give stadium tours with another company. I'm still a Yankee. I still bleed. And one of the things that I think the people up in the suites that hire me like about me is I promote the Yankees.
Yeah, you do.
I I love the Yankees. I love what Mr. Steinbrenner gave me. I will never forget what the Yankees gave me. All right. I will never forget what George Steinbrenner gave me, and what the current people that are with the Yankees continue to give me to take care of my family, to be able to work there. Would I like relationships with other people there to be better? Of course I do. Of course I do. But I've learned over the years, Eddie, no matter how much evidence, things that are in my favor, no matter how much I want people to like me, not everyone's going to like you. And you just have to accept that. It's painful because I'm the kind of person that likes to be liked. And I think, like you said, I'm a pretty good guy, and I
Yeah,
know
right.
from a God fearing person, I am a great guy, you know. And God is the center point of Michelle in my life. And I'm looking forward to this documentary from a standpoint of um, showing people that you don't have to give up. That no matter what you're accused of, no matter how bleak it looks, no matter who convicts you of the media or whoever, that if you're willing to fight for the truth, you'll be better off, and you'll be much more rewarded than a World Series trophy and a World Series championship. That you'll get eternal rewards in heaven because of the way you've decided to live your life, the way that I've decided to live my life afterwards.
Jimmy, this is what I feel. I feel that if you weren't a Yankee, you were just a regular guy, you know, this case would have been done in 3 weeks.
Would have been gone in 6 months. Yep. Yeah.
Right.
The fact that the state attorney was running to become a judge, even Beth Karras, Beth Karras, who works for In Session TV, she was my sounding board because I gave her all of the evidence, all the depositions against my attorney's, you know, advice, because I wanted her to be equipped with the truth. And I told her, I don't want you to like me. I don't want you just to think that whatever I tell you is the truth. I'm going to give you factual evidence.
Right. Yeah.
So when someone says to you, "Oh well, Jim Leyritz was a .18," no, he wasn't. Technically, he wasn't even over the legal limit. She had all that evidence, and she was a good sounding board during that time when they were trying to convict me in the media. She kind of fought for me and said, "No, no, no, you guys don't know the whole story. You don't know everything that was going on." And to this day, Beth is one of my closest friends. She will be part of the documentary because she was the one that really uncovered that the state attorney, because when she read all the evidence and depositions, Eddie, 8 months before the trial, she couldn't figure out why this was going to court. She was a district attorney for 20 years. She's like, something's not right. And she's the one that uncovered that the state attorney was running to become a judge. And that's why this case was staying in the news. And that's why she arrested me 2 or 3 times just to get her name out there. Not because I did something wrong, because she had the ability to get it done to embarrass me because the media would cover it.
Did she end up being a judge, the state attorney?
Nope, never.
Ah.
It was, yeah. Like I told you, the judge called me in afterward and said she'll never become a judge. Yeah.
Unreal, man.
Yeah.
Just to get a promotion, just to trying to become a judge, you want to take
Eddie,
someone's life away.
You want to know what makes it worse? I coached her 9-year-old son in baseball.
What?
Yeah. She knew I wasn't a
Hold on a minute. Let's
she knew
break
I
this
wasn't
down.
a wash. So Phoenix, my youngest one, was the same age as her son.
Mm-hmm.
And I coached in the Little League with her son and the whole thing. So and she knew I wasn't this washed up, drunk ball player that couldn't accept life. She knew that she was getting her nails done with the girl that I was actually dating before Michelle, and knew that I had taken her and her son in, and that I was actually a really great guy. And she knew all this, and she still pursued it for her own benefit.
Has her son ever say, "You're a great coach. Wow, you're teaching me well," and all that? I mean, can you imagine? I'm just thinking like this, Jimmy. The kid is going home, Mom, Coach Jimmy, he taught me really well. And she's probably in her head thinking, I don't want this guy to teach you well. You know what I mean?
Well, it's so funny you say that. And I know we've been talking a long time.
No, we don't worry about it, Jimmy. You're my boy, but go ahead.
So literally, maybe a year and a half waiting for trial. I take my youngest son, Phoenix, to GameWorks in Fort Lauderdale.
What is GameWorks? What is that? Like video games
Chuck
and
E.
all? Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah,
Okay.
the video games, the restaurant
yeah.
with the video games.
Uh-huh.
And I take him to GameWorks, and we walk in, and there's all of these kids that he played baseball with. They're there. And I'm sitting there, and I'm playing Papa Shot with all these kids and having some fun. And all of a sudden, from around the corner comes the state attorney with a camera, taking pictures of all these little kids because it's her son's birthday party. So here I am playing Papa Shot with her son while she is here celebrating his birthday because Phoenix knows them and he's playing with them. Eddie, Michelle, when you see Michelle, tell her to tell you this story. So Michelle, I literally didn't know what to do. I walked away and I called Michelle on the phone and I go, Michelle, you're not going to believe this. She's like, what? I go, I'm at, GameWorks and Stephanie Newman is here. I go, I'm playing games with her son. Should I tell her son that her mom's trying to throw me in jail?
Oh my God.
And Michelle goes, Jimmy, no, don't do that. Take the high road. Take the high road. Let it. And sure enough, I took the high road, and I didn't say anything. And then I called my attorney up that night and I told him what happened. And he's like, oh my God, I can't believe that. I said, yeah, David, at some point that's gonna come in handy. And then sure enough, we were in a meeting with the judge and the state attorney, and I mentioned to the state attorney, hey, did the kids get enough autographs the other day? And the judge looked at the state attorney like, what's he talking about? And I said, Your Honor, it's kind of funny. We ran into each other and I didn't want to make it awkward. So I signed a bunch of autographs for their kids that she was with. And he was like, I don't believe this.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was pretty
Wow.
crazy.
Wow. Jimmy, I knew one time you took me, and this is for you viewers. Here's a classic story with Jimmy and I and a couple from Canada on Mother's Day. This was around 2021 to 2022. So I'm going to tell you.
Actually, it was just 3 years ago.
3 years ago, right? So I'm going to tell the story. This is great. All right. Jimmy calls me, and I'm his like Mariano Rivera. If he has no one else to go to Yankee game with him, with gangsters.
If John Anthony's not available,
right?
He's my next one.
Yes, I'm the next guy, right? So this is the funny story. So Jimmy calls me, Eddie, I got an extra ticket. Now these tickets, we're sitting second row, right behind home, legend seats, right? So Jimmy, this is so funny. I come in, of course, Jimmy introduces me to these two people, a couple from Canada. And this is a great story, okay? Jimmy is on the train waiting to on the platform.
I was at the 59th Street station waiting for the 4 train.
Right, go ahead, continue. Tell the story.
and these two people, you could tell they weren't from New York, and they were trying to talk to the person behind the cage at the subway station, trying to get directions to Yankee Stadium. And I hear them talking to this guy, and the guy can't speak any English. That's behind the wall. Mm-hmm. And he looks at the wife and goes, I don't think we're going to make it. And I said, well, excuse me. I said, where are you guys going? And he goes, we're going to Yankee Stadium. We have seats. We're from Canada.
It was on Mother's Day.
Like, oh. What's that?
It was on Mother's Day, actually.
It was Mother's Day.
Right.
And I said, well, I'm going to Yankee Stadium. I'll take you guys. And so I was going to meet you, but I had 2 extra seats. And I didn't want to give them to just anybody. And it just kind of hit me. I was like, you know what? I said, where are your seats at? They said, we're up in the nosebleeds. I go, all right, listen, not for nothing. I said, but I used to play for the Yankees. And they're like, you did? Who are you? And I said, I'm Jim Leyritz. He said, oh my God, I know who you are. He was a baseball fan. He's like, I know who you are. I go, listen, I got 2 seats right behind home plate. I would love for you guys to be my guest. It's Mother's Day. Let's celebrate Mother's Day. Eddie, just the way God works sometimes, they could on the train ride up, she explained to me that they were a blended family, that they were away from their own kids that day and they were kind of sad. That's why they were going to the Yankee game, to just kind of have fun. And the fact that I invited them to be part of that. And then, of course, the walk-off home run.
Gleyber Torres, I think, yeah.
Yeah, with Gleyber Torres' pink bat on Mother's Day.
Yeah.
These people still reach out to me, Eddie, and thank me. And they sent me literally sent me a text message a week later and said, "Thank you for giving us the greatest story that we tell everybody at our local bar about meeting you and the day that you gave us at Yankee Stadium." That was pretty cool.
What, they didn't say anything about me?
No,
No, thanks. Right. Oh,
who's that Eddie Mata guy?
right. Who the hell is Eddie Mata, right? I mean, yeah, that was a moment. And then there was one time we were at Old Timers Day, and I remember Willie Randolph passing by, and we're right behind home, sitting, gangster seats, I call it. And Willie's like, "You should be out here, man. You should be out here," right? You remember that?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's been a fight we've been fighting for quite a while. But I always say this: it's God's timing. It's not our timing. And yes, would I have wanted it 10 years ago? Yeah, of course. But it'll happen in God's time when it's supposed to happen. And like I said, the fact that they allow me to come there and work up in the suites, I try to be their best ambassador that I can be to promote the Yankees and, of course, the suites and what it's like to have former Yankees come up in those suites. And but yeah, I mean, it's I'm really happy where my life is now. And like I said, when Franco Porporino came to me and said, "Hey, would you want to do a documentary now?" Eddie. I kind of wondered. I'm like, man, I'm Jim Leyritz. I'm not A-Rod. I'm not. But he's like, Franco's like, "Listen, your story will change lives.
Oh, will.
That's why we're going to do this. It has nothing to do with what's good for you or good. Your story, your faith, your everything that you have, you will help other people by telling your story. It's going to be big. I want to do it, and that's why we've decided to go ahead and do it."
I'm so looking forward to it. Also, for
Yeah.
people that really want to get to know Jimmy, here's a book called Catching Heat. Jimmy, tell me about this book, please. What's it
That book
about
came out.
exactly?
It came out in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, obviously, a lot has happened since then. The last chapter of my life is still going.
So maybe it's a
Um,
part two book now you got to write too. So you got the
I
documentary
have
coming.
been I have been approached to write a Christian book about faith
Mm-hmm.
because of when I came to California, I went to work at the church with Rick Warren. I was an usher at the church for 12 years while Rick was there because I felt like that's God brought me there, you know. And so, um, what were you saying? So
Part two
anyway,
of the
wrote the
book.
book. Yeah, wrote the book. It came out in 2011. It was all about beating the odds, about never being drafted, making it to the big leagues. The book was actually written called Catching Heat. I'm sorry, called The King and Dad. It was supposed to come out in 2007 before the accident. And it was
Oh.
all about leaving the game of baseball.
Oh, so it was more of a motivational book, like inspiring book, right?
Well, it was going to come out. It was going to come out as a Father's Day book in June of 2008. It was all about leaving the game of baseball and coming home and being the best teammate of all. And that was Dad. And how my father gave up promotions and to not disrupt my family life, how I was giving up baseball to come home and be the kids' fathers, and things like that. And it was going to be written about, you know, what I was doing in TV and radio and everything else before the accident. When the accident happened, they pulled the book and said, "We don't want to do it." So I already had 10 chapters written. And then during that 3 years of waiting for trial, I met a woman speaking at the church to 16 and 18-year-old kids about the dangers of drinking and driving and how it can change your life. And she had no idea that I had this former life as a ball player. She just thought I was sharing my story with these kids about dangers. And when she met me, she's like, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I have 110 pages written already. You want to look at it?" And she looked at it and she said, "You need to write a book, but I want to do, since your number was 13, let's do 3 more chapters and make it 13 chapters. And I want you, to write about what's been going on in your life these last 3 years, and whether you're guilty or not guilty. We want to buy your, we want you to write this book." So I did.
Look at you, man.
And when we picked Doug Lyons and Jeffrey Lyons to write the book, Doug Lyons said, "Well, we can't call it The King and Dad because that trademark was already taken." He said, "Let's rename it Catching Heat because number one, you caught a lot of heat from Roger Clemens and Andy Pettit as a catcher, but then you also caught a lot of heat in the courtroom and through the state attorney and everything else that you went through with the court system. Let's call it Catching Heat," and it sounded great to me.
Jim, your story's unbelievable, man. It really is. I'm looking forward to this documentary.
Thank you.
I really want people to really know who you really are. You know, Jimmy, has it ever happened when, even maybe a Yankee Stadium, anybody ever said, "Oh, you're a murderer, get out of here," or
Eddie, it's amazing how sometimes it does happen. Again, that's why Franco Porporino. That's the reason he wants to do the documentary because he had people saying it to him,
oh shit.
like, yeah, like and that really, I think that's why Franco really like this became personal for him because he's like, you don't know this guy because Franco's since we met each other, 2 years ago, we've spent probably 100 hours together talking about this documentary and how we were going to do this and who we were going to interview and all these different types of things. Um, but that became his passion too. Was like, you should not be treated this way. People are looking at you completely wrong, and it still happens with appearances. I'll get called to go do a charity event, and a week later, I'll get a phone call and from whoever booked me for it and said, "Hey, by the way, we got to pull you from this event because somebody Googled you that's on the board and they don't want you there." And my first thing is send them a book, let them read my book. Let them get the truth.
But has it ever happened like they said they don't want you there, and then they did read the book and like, you know what,
Yeah,
bring him.
I've been apologized to quite a few times. Yes, yes. And again, that's one of the reasons why I do podcasts. The reasons I talk about these things. Um, I try not to rehash too much of the past because that's where it's at. But it's an important story to tell, just because I know other people uh, deal with these kind of things, and I want to show them that if you believe in God, if you believe in fighting for the truth, and if you put your head to it, you can defeat evil, and that's what I was able to do. And 90% of it is is because of my faith and what I was able to do by changing my life through the purpose-driven life.
Let me ask you this: as far as the executives in within the Yankees organization, has anybody said, "You know what, Jimmy? No, you are welcome."
Oh no, they have been. There's been times in the beginning that I wasn't welcome back. That there were some people, but overall, you know, it's been the majority of people. I'll say the majority of people have been. They know that when they use me for an event, that their client is going to walk away happy because I get involved, because I represent the Yankee name with pride that Mr. Steinbrenner instilled in me about not pride for my ego and myself, but pride for wearing the NY, by being a part of the Pinstripes, by being part of an organization that has been so successful. Who cares if not everybody likes you? You have an obligation to promote the Yankees when they are using you to pay you to do an event, to pay you to go up in the suites, to do all these appearances. It's my job and my obligation, no matter what my relationship is with anybody, is to go out and represent the Yankees to the greatest of my ability in the best light that I can put the New York Yankees. And that's kind of what I do.
You know what? This is what's going to happen, Jim. After the documentary, I have a feeling that the woman that was involved in the accident, their family's going to reach out to you.
What?
Their family might reach out to you and say,
You know what? I don't know, and I don't think so, Eddie. I think you know what. There's a lot of hurt there.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom line is, anytime you lose somebody, I don't care what anybody tells me, what anybody proves to me. There's going to be a lot of really, really tough feelings. I wouldn't expect it. That's not why I'm doing
No,
this
I know that, but
documentary.
I'm just saying. You know why?
Um,
You know why I said
you
that
know,
is because.
it has,
Hold on,
yeah, but I'm
Jimmy.
just
No,
saying.
no, no, Jimmy. You know
The
what I?
bottom line is,
You know what I
the
told you
bottom line
that.
is,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, the bottom line is, I pray. You know, the one thing that people don't understand. This happened on my birthday. I will never forget. I just celebrated my 62nd birthday. You know what we did? My wife and I, we sat at home and we made pizzas and we watched TV. It's not a time for celebration. It's still a very hard day for me
Yeah, it is
because I
because
was involved in
every year is a reminder that this is what
I
happened
was
on your
involved
birthday.
in something that was very tragic, and you don't forget it. And I can't imagine how I still think about it. That family has to think about it.
Yeah,
So I pray for them every day. I pray for their well-being. I pray that the kids grew up, somehow with a better mother figure or better something, something that they were, something that has made their lives better. And I am so sad for them for what they had to do because I know what my children went through, and I'm still here. And it's just one of those things. Like I said, Eddie, people that see the documentary, if it gets picked up, people that see the documentary will understand that it's not really about that. It's about faith, perseverance, never giving up, and fighting for the truth. And you can't fault that. There's no. I don't know the word for it, but there's no way to fight that because it's the truth.
right,
And I hope people see it. I hope they gain strength from it. And if they're going through something in their lives, that this will kind of give them the power to go, you know what? I'm going to fight. I know the truth. One of the things about doing 18 days in jail, like I did, I met a ton of guys that are in that jail that don't have the ability to defend themselves, that could have been innocent, that are behind bars. That I was fortunate that I was able to be able to take care of myself.
right,
You know, so I'm hoping that things like that I can be part of. I've always said once I am to a point where I don't have to rent a house and I can have some money in the bank and get my life back, I will be able to go to the Innocence Project and get some people that are in jail out of jail because I know there's people in there that didn't have the representation I did to be able to prove all those facts and all those things that were true.
right. And the reason I mentioned that is because when I interviewed Boom Boom Mancini, the boxer, he accidentally killed a guy in the ring, right? Accidentally. And at that time, the wife of that fighter, she was pregnant. And then, or maybe she was pregnant or not. But the thing is that her son, when son got older, he had a grudge against Boom Boom. And then finally, when they did the documentary, I don't know if you saw it, but he they showed up, mother and the son, and the son's like 32 years old at the time, around 2014, the documentary, and they had dinner, and it was so awkward for Boom Boom. You know what I mean? And what happened was the kid opened up and said, "It's not your fault.
Right,
It wasn't,
right.
you know." So
Listen, yeah, listen. You at the end of the day, like I said, I pray for the family every day. I pray that they were able to move on and that they're all living a good healthy life. That's
right,
all you can ask for. And like I said, this documentary is more about just never giving up, and just fighting for the truth. So
well, Jimmy, you've been great, man. This is
well,
very, very interesting. It's a great story. I'm glad I had you on my podcast. I
it
love
was a
you,
long
man.
one, Eddie. We put in some hours.
Well, you know what? I don't care. Most of my podcasts are long. It just I cut the mini clips, and
Yeah.
mini clips and the full interviews are going to be on YouTube. But Jimmy, you're the man. I know you since 2013, and we still have a great relationship. You know, talking baseball, talking classic stories, talking about everything, man. Just,
Yeah, listen, like I told you before, Eddie, I was told that by my pastor at my church
mhm.
6 days after my accident when I said, Troy, why is this happening to me? And he looked at me and he said, Jimmy, God could have taken you that night. He left you here for a purpose.
Yeah.
And Eddie, that's before he handed me the purpose driven life. He didn't give me the purpose driven life till 2 weeks later. But he said, you were left here for a purpose. You won't see that while you're going through the storm. But when you get through it, you'll realize what your purpose is. And if you play any clip, play this one. My purpose was to change lives through the tragedy that I was involved in and to actually show people how to fight for the truth. Um, and that was my pastor. My pastor of the church said I could have been taken that night.
Yeah.
It could have been me. So it's I'm very fortunate, and I thank God every day that we're here and we're able to still do what we do, Eddie. I mean, we're very blessed. We get to go to a lot of games. We get to do a lot of things. Um, it's just, but my father, my mother, George Steinbrenner, and Rick Warren, the pastor of my church, and now my wife, Michelle. It's all about giving back. It's all about what you do for others, not what you do for yourself.
I think that was a quote from Jackie Robinson.
Yep, exactly. So I didn't know that, but
No, it is, and I believe in
yeah,
that. It's what you could do for others, not for yourself.
yeah.
Jimmy, you are the best. Hold on, let me. So
All right,
again,
brother.
guys, hold on. The book. Where can they find the book, Jimmy?
So the book is called Catching Heat. It's on my website, which is jimleyritz.com.
Mhm.
You can go to the website, you can buy the book, but you can also see all the things that I'm doing, all the charities, the foundations, the calendar of where I'll be speaking next, because I do a lot of public speaking. Like I mentioned, corporations, churches, and colleges are my three big categories that I do a lot of speaking. And I'll be doing that. April to October, Eddie, I'm in New York.
Yep.
I'm there for every Yankee home game, working up in the suites, giving stadium tours for Grandstand Sports. Um, but yeah, so anybody that wants to see what I'm doing, go to jimleyritz.com and you know, we'll come visit us.
You got it. On that note, Jimmy Leyritz, baby, the king. Let me end it right here. Hold on, Jimmy. Hold on.